my name is Jeff from Mental Health Resource.
And I am 𝐃𝐨𝐻 with the StraitJacket Podcast. And today we have our guest, Van, here with us today. Hi, Van. How are you?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
Of course. And Van has got almost 7.98 years of sobriety.
Something like that.
We made that up before we started recording. He will have 8 years on the 17th of December. So this episode will probably be dropping right around that time. So by the time people see it, you will have 8 years. So something about around there.
Close enough.
Yeah, close enough to it. And Van is also an incredible musician, incredible guitarist. How long have you been playing? No, he's played guitar. We've played music together. I've known him for quite some time. I think a decade.
At least
a decade now. I think 11 years. Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah. And we've played and doing worship together and played just doing some other stuff together. So
wedding.
Huh?
Richie's wedding.
We've done a wedding together.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Van has an incredible story and testimony. So I wanted to bring him in and hear all about it. Because I've actually not heard your full and entire story, but I've heard glimmers and pockets of it. And I know when we put it all together, it's a doozy.
It certainly can be.
Yeah. Aren't they all, though?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When you live that lifestyle, definitely. There's a lot of highlights and a lot of
lows,
hills and valleys.
Yeah, a lot of fulcrum points.
Yeah,
tipping points along the way,
and a lot of wisdom that you gain from all of those things. A lot of miracles.
It would have been wiser if I would have picked it up quicker.
Sometimes it takes what it takes. You know what I mean? Like, I think that we do that to ourselves sometimes, but it's like it doesn't serve us.
It sure doesn't.
It doesn't serve us to be like, well, what if? Like, I mean, I wish I would have never started.
Yeah.
So
what a world it would be.
So tell us a little bit about Van growing up.
Well, so I think an important thing for me is to mention that I was a pretty shy individual as a kid.
Yeah.
Right? So a born introvert like my dad, and wasn't terribly comfortable in social settings. And I'm still sort of like that today, right? But when I discovered alcohol, it took all that away. So I'm one of those guys that got a lot of social grace out of alcohol. And almost immediately I was embarrassing myself and making a jackass out of myself in front of people that I had to see the next day. And I was making excuses almost right out of the gate.
Right.
And that continued through, early adulthood. Basically, the alcohol, I was like a normal person in my teens, embarrassing myself and doing things that I would not have done if I wasn't drinking. Got into drugs a little bit, but I literally had to learn to like every drug that I ever tried. Coke, pot, whatever it is. It wasn't an immediate love, right? Except with alcohol. But then something happened that I hate to share, but it's an important component if it wasn't for this, I may not have become an addict or a drug addict. And I remember the day I was in a gym in Diamond Bar working out, and this guy walks up to me and says, "Hey, you want to work tonight?" And I said, "Doing what?" He said, "All you got to do is show up, and I run a male dance troupe. All you got to do is take pictures of the girls with their favorite dancer, and we're going to pay you. And you have a bar tab of X amount of dollars." I can't remember what it was. So I went to, I forget the name of the club, but it was in Riverside, and it was a huge club. And there's me and like 7 guys and about 500 women and no men. And it was an instant, this is what I want to do with the rest of my life. This is it right here. And it was awesome, right? I hate to share that in a sense because it kind of takes the attention. Like if I show that in a meeting, it's rabbit trails the whole meeting just because it's sort of it seems like it's more unique than it actually is. And then long story short, I got into the dancing and I made a lifestyle that allowed me to basically be a teenager into my 20s.
Yeah.
I didn't have to work. I was going to college, but I was doing a lot of blow. I was doing a lot of meth and drinking a lot. And the justification was, this is my job.
Yep.
Right? So I was able to do that for a decade. Right? And sort of to fast forward to the addiction part is there was a batch of meth that we got one time that was kind of pink. And I won't forget it because everybody that did it went crazy. And I probably didn't sleep for 2 to 4 weeks and went completely rabid. And that was my first stint in rehab.
Yeah.
American Hospital in Pomona. Right? And I was explaining to the counselors that this is my job, this is what I do to pay my bills.
Right.
And I didn't really have any bills at the time to speak of, right? And they're all, you might want to consider getting out of that business because it's just not real conducive to a healthy lifestyle. And I chose to ignore that advice. And it came from multiple sources and continued to do that. Came out. One thing that was bothering me at the time was I felt like a loser because I was a stripper, right? And it's now it's way worse, but the stigma back then was like I wanted to be somebody that mattered. You know, I wanted to have an important job where people would respect me and I'd be doing something productive for society rather than just breaking up marriages or setting a marriage off on the wrong foot, right?
Yeah.
So I decided I was going to go to USC and become a doctor. That was the goal because then I would matter. Then I would be important. And I actually got thrown out of a couple high schools, so there was no reason to believe that I would be able to do that. But one thing about being an addict is you're able to focus on one thing over and over and over, so you can be a pretty good student.
Yeah.
You know, if you're an alcoholic, if you got that kind of brain, it's not all bad. So I was able to excel and do really well at school. I had no program, so I didn't know how to manage my expectations. And to fast forward that USC experience, I thought that I failed a test. So I relapsed on meth with a stripper ex-girlfriend, right? And then it became really weird that was my first experience trying to bring or dragging that old luggage into a new situation, and it was a mismatch. So now I'm up all night for days, and it was horrible.
Yeah.
It was horrible. And that was my first stint, and I ended up getting stuck. I got dragged off to a hospital because I was kind of going nuts. And it was the beginning of a long, miserable road of 1 step forward, 3 steps back.
Yeah.
And that continued for years.
Yeah.
Right? And then another point that was very important during the midst of that time is I went to a harvest crusade and became a Christian. Right? And I did my best to repent and had trouble. Right? It just wasn't, it wasn't an instant thing. During the course of this time, I did get one period, and this is, I think, an important takeaway, is I had 10 years of not drinking or using. And I don't use the word sober anymore. And the reason I don't say sober is because I was the same jackass, self-centered, always about me, except I couldn't see it. And I didn't have a program. I didn't have 12 steps. I didn't have a sobriety date. I didn't have a sponsor. So I had nothing. What I thought I had was a deal with God that said, I'm going to do, as long as I do XYZ, the Lord is going to do XYZ for me. And that's not the deal. That is 100% not the deal. And it took 10 years of relapse to break that from me until I understood that God's God and I'm not. And then there's a period, right? I did get into leading worship during the course of that clean time and became a proficient musician. I started playing again at the age of 35. That was a gift of being sober or being clean and wanting to be of service to the best of my ability at the time. But during the course of that 10 years of relapse, I must have relapsed hundreds of times. Like Roger McDermott is my sponsor. And we started over again, I don't know how many times.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times. And I guess I can go to the part where the ultimate moment came when I hit my bottom.
Yeah, we can go there. We usually, with the course of your story, you know, like during that time when you were playing worship and you were still going back and forth and going out. Walk me through that, because I know that there must be a little bit of that like dichotomy, like that spiritual tear of, you know, I'm here. What I want is to serve God and play worship, but my feet are walking me in a different direction. Let's go into that a little bit.
You got it. Okay, so that's what I call no man's land, living a double life against my own desire, you know? And that would be when I started at his place, right? I came into Huntington Beach from South County in flames. I relapsed and hooked up with this married woman who'd been chasing me for like a decade because I was in car sales at the time. The medical thing didn't work out.
Yeah.
So got into the sales,
and
right?
You did get out of dancing.
Oh, yeah. I ultimately got out of dancing. I was glad to do that, and then got into sales. Anyway, so my house gets short sold. That's about 2006, 7, right when that was going down, and moved into Huntington Beach into an apartment and felt like a loser.
Yeah.
Right. And there was evidence to substantiate being a loser, you know, and when I got to his place, I met my sponsor who went to USC, so I connected with him there, and he was in sales, and I connected with him there, and I started doing worship at his place almost immediately. Yeah. Went to one Wednesday, met the worship leader who tried to he wanted to like do a quick, what is that called? Audition, and he's telling me to play, asking me to play chords, and I go, dude, you want me to just play? You want me to play you a song? And he goes, sure. So I played him a song, and he goes, you want to cover for me tonight? And it was on. So I wanted to just start a new life, but I didn't have 12 steps under me, which is the only way that I've found to manage my emotions and prevent the kind of decisions that come from a snap decision, you know, the kind of results that come from that. So there was many months, and I never went there, and I never jumped on that stage and played high. Yeah. But I came in flames many times. Yeah. And I would leave the church, and I would go to this Mexican restaurant, and I'd start drinking Cadillac margaritas and eating tacos. Yeah. And then before you knew it, I'm on the road going into Santa Ana to buy as much crack as I could find. Yeah. Whatever giant bag of whatever drug I could find, until I found somebody who would ultimately deliver it to my house. Yeah. And that went on for a long time because I think that we all have a fantasy, right, of a picture. It might have been at one point a nightclub and, you know, doing some blow in the bathroom with a bunch of pretty girls, or it might have been whatever the thing is. For me, it was playing my guitar and having my feet up and drinking a glass of wine. Yeah. Right? Sounds like a legit normal thing that people would do after a long day. Except for an alcoholic, there is no one glass of wine. Right. So it would end up, by the time I was halfway through, I'd be on the phone ordering a giant bag of dope. And that would take me down for 3, 4, 5 days. Yeah. And almost to the point of death. Because my thing was I'd just buy the dope and then I'd smoke it as fast as I possibly could. Yeah. And that doesn't, you know, there's no way for that to turn out real good. So.
Did you have a death scare, a near-death experience?
I had many.
Yeah.
I had many.
Walk me through one of those.
Well, so what I would do is end up, like, by the time it was almost gone, I would be so cramped up and so sweaty. There would be, all my windows would just be like dripping. It was nasty. I'd be in a pool of sweat inside my bathroom. And then I'd get to my bed and just sit there and try not to move. And it was horrible. It was horrible. And sometimes I'd get heroin to try to come down. But it was always a near-death experience. Always a near-death experience. But as I would face another, when that lie popped into my head, the glass of wine with the fireplace and the guitar, when that idea would pop into my head, I would forget about that, the end of the night, and I'd only think about the beginning and that first hit. Like, I'm sure many of us can relate to that, but when I would do that, there was time I didn't. Now, every time I would drink, I wouldn't get the crack, but there was always a significant risk that I would.
Yeah.
And then the idea is, there's a fair chance that I won't get crack tonight. I'm not going to do it because I know I have to go to work tomorrow.
Yeah.
But that never really ended up stopping me, and I'd call in sick, and I never lost a job. So I was able to put a nice little package together that management would believe. And it did hurt my production. It hurt my mental state. And it made me miserable to the extreme. And at the end, I always had money, and I always had a job, and I always had a car. I'm not one of those guys whose bottom had anything to do with not being able physically to do it. So I had to get sober in the midst of having resources.
Yep.
Right? I had enough resources to go buy all the drugs I could possibly do. Right? And I got sober in the midst of that, which was difficult back then, but I see people face it now, and it's, once they get a little money, it's really on, because it's untried, it's untested. So I came through that. You asked about a near-death experience.
Yeah.
There was one near-death experience that was different. And that's the one that scared me to death. Yeah. And that was the last one. Right? And it was no different than any other time. Giant bag of dope, smoked it as fast as I could, except not audibly, but God told me, we're done. We are done. We're not gonna do this one more time. Next time you do this, you're coming with me. And this is how you're gonna leave this earth. And the thought of not just the death, but to be the cause of my own death. And I knew that there was plans. I knew that there was a great life ahead of me if I could just manage to stay sober. And I believed him. And it scared me. And I had been in my mind toying with the idea of checking myself into one of the church's recovery homes, Gabe's home. And I was going to do it, but then I felt better, and then I didn't do it. This time I did it because I knew I was at the end of the road. And that was kind of like a gift from God to just kind of let me know, you do it again and you're dead. Guaranteed. We're not doing it again. And that's how I ended up in recovery for real, because I'd been not using, but never really had recovery. So my commitment was, in getting sober really didn't have anything to do with, the commitment on my end, other than two things. There was a few things that I had never done. And one of those things was to work the 12 steps from beginning to end. And the other thing was to do it with a sponsor. And the other thing was to have a sobriety date. I was told that if you don't have a sobriety date, you won't have it for long. If it's not precious and sacred to you, and then you won't have it for very long. So I purposed in my own head that I'm going to have a sobriety date that I'm going to defend with my life, right? And with my effort and with my work, anything I can do. And I'm going to work my steps, and I'm going to learn how to be not just a Christian jackass, that looks down on other people because they're not where you're at, but to be like who God wanted me to be. And it was a massive dynamic shift when I did that. And things all of a sudden just changed. Like, you know how, like when you're coming near the end of a run and everything happens in threes.
Mm-hmm.
The car gets repoed,
Mm-hmm.
gets thrown out of the apartment,
Mm-hmm.
get dumped by the boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
The other way is when you flip the switch, it's like things just start clicking in the right direction.
Right.
And it's been like that. Not that it's all been good, since I made that decision, but the choices that I had the clarity to make have put me in a spot that I never would have imagined that I would be at this point. Like, I have a ministry now that reaches out to one of my favorite organizations, which is the Salvation Army. My sponsor is married to the Salvation Army and does a thing called Came to Believe, where they run everybody through the 12 steps in the whole Western region. Mm-hmm. And my sponsee, who ended up at the Salvation Army that I served at for 10 years, now is like a leader in, they call it command, central command. Mm-hmm. And he's over the whole Western United States. And I do these events that like bring churches together and everything to try to bring awareness to the Salvation Army. And I just love it. And this is, my first word wasn't mommy, it was me, mine. And now to be able to care about what's happening in other people's lives, the shift is hard to, unless you knew me, it's hard to imagine.
Yeah.
Born narcissist right here. Gifted narcissist. And I'm not anymore. Now I'm a recovering narcissist. So it's not as bad.
It's a big deal, though.
It's a big deal because now, I mean, when you go through life and you don't know how about you it is horrible. What I know now because I see it in other people that are where I was before. And at this point, I'm aware of my flaws, and I don't feel like I have to defend them because I'm working on them.
Yeah.
Right? I don't have to hide from them. There's nothing to hide. And that's the thing about that double life we were talking about. The thing that sucks about that so much is you're never you. I mean, you have to hide like such a big part of who you are because it's so ugly.
Yeah.
And that's the truth of it. It is that ugly. Nobody would want anybody to see that stuff.
No.
But when it's under repair and when you're taking active steps, because now I have routine, I have a daily spiritual program where I write myself, I do a 10th step every morning. I don't do it at night. I do it in the morning because I'm a morning person. And I write down like, I was a jackass here. I had some kind of selfish thinking here. This interaction I had made me feel a little funky because there's something wrong with me. What is that? And I would write, and just, I do that every day. And every day I'm growing a little bit more and more. And then when you take that responsibility, there's something that happens and things begin to click and your life just is there's not as much drama that revolves around you. And now you can revolve yourself around other people's drama, and other people's stuff.
And help them.
Yeah. And then you actually become, I remember when I was new, the thought of helping somebody else, it was like I wanted to help somebody else, but I had no passion for doing anything for anybody other than myself. I was like wanting to quit. I wanted to want to quit so many times because I knew that the hammer was 100% going to fall and it was going to be worse than the last. I just intellectually knew that, but I wasn't free to get to that. I couldn't change myself to be that guy. But at this point, I can look back and say so many elements of my personality have changed. That I'm not the same person that I was, and I've truly been transformed into a new creation.
Yeah.
By cooperating with what God wants to do anyway.
Yeah. It's amazing. It can be instantaneous too. So it takes a lot of work to maintain everything, but like those miracles do happen.
They do. I wish it was instantaneous, but for me it was more like a long, drawn out battle, every little step. But the more you do anything, the easier it gets.
You build the muscle.
Yeah, and then you get the workout that you're not used to, and then that's just called life being in session.
Yep.
And that happens too. But you can't face big battles if you can't even handle the little battles, like what you're going to do that day. If there's a possibility that there's a chance I could decide to just go out and get loaded. You know, when that's always hanging over your head, it's hard to get to the next level. You can't get to the next level.
Yeah.
So you got to put that to bed first. And then from there, you take advantage of that freedom to build your program instead of trying to make up for lost time. Right? That feeling of, oh man, so much time has passed. I mean, I got to hurry up and make up for everything I didn't do.
Right.
That right there is a lie too.
Yeah.
And I was victimized by that. Like I had to do some superhuman achievements in order to make up for the things I didn't do. That's just more of the pride. And the more of that falls away, the easier it is to just do what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah. What void do you think you were trying to fill by using?
Well, I can answer that because I've thought about that a lot. And the void, I don't think was it was God, right? Obviously, it's going to come back to that. But I can tell you that there's a painful reality that we all have to deal with. And that's a kind of like a gauge or a meter against, we're all measured against it. It starts off when you're a little kid. Your little brother spoke his first word before you did. Well, little Johnny got a better grade. He got the happy face, and you didn't get the happy face. You got the okay face. And then you got the C, but they got the A. He makes this much, and you got that much, right? He gets the raise because he did this. So you're always trying to measure yourself against a standard that was made up by somebody else. And that's the way it is in the world. That's just the way it is. That's the way it is for me right now at work, right? But that's just work. That's just the way the world works, right? But with God, it's not like that. With God, it's different. And this is where ultimately the void was pain. And being me was just so painful. Just so, the only self-talk I'd get is, you just suck, dude. Why do you have to be so lazy? You know, why can't you it's just from beginning to end, from the beginning of my day to the end. There's not enough drugs or alcohol to get high enough to make that feel good. Right. It's just not there. So when I shifted my identity around, and I know this isn't necessarily a Christian thing, but for me, my story revolves directly around letting my relationship with my maker be the way it's supposed to be as much as I can, right? Yeah. And when I realized that I was created for a specific, like that brick wall behind you right there, there's all these different bricks. And I'm one of those bricks. But I'm a certain brick that's made a certain way that's supposed to do one certain thing. And only I can fill that one little spot if I'm operating in God's kingdom. Yeah. Right? And when I embrace, all I got to do is be the best Van I can be. I don't have to compete against all this other stuff. It's like just a sigh of relief. Yeah. And I'm walking in that now, and it is sick, the amount of freedom that I'm experiencing right now. Because there was a pastor, a Calvary guy, I think, what was his name? John Corson, I think. And he said a snail glorifies God more than you do because the snail is doing snail stuff. It's doing what it's supposed to do. It leaves that little slimy trail. It goes and makes it does whatever snails do. Yeah. It does what it's supposed to do, but you don't. So all I have to do is what I'm supposed to do. And usually that has something to do with what you love. In my case, I'm connected to music, right? And now I get to do it all day almost. I mean, I got to work some, but not like I used to. It's like I have this freedom that I don't know that it'll last forever, but I'm going to take advantage of it and enjoy it while I can. I can say that being sober has made this possible without having that problem solved. And when I say solved, I'm not trying to say that we ever get cured, because I tried that experiment, and it's waiting, and it's doing push-ups, like they say. I can attest to that. But when you're able to walk in that freedom, it's a whole different deal, and there isn't that void or that pain. I think of them as the same thing, that painful existence of just the battle in the head constantly going on. The freedom of that is, it's worth all the things that you think you're sacrificing, which you're really not. There is nothing to be gained by an addict using drugs or drinking alcohol. There is no upside to that. It's pure death. And it sucks. It's misery. It's shame. It's all those things packaged into one. And that's not why we were put on this earth. Because you take that addict personality, you take all that poison away, and you've got somebody that the Bible calls single-minded. And that's a powerful thing.
A powerful human being, yeah.
Yeah, a single-minded person is what God is looking for. You know, and there's a lot of examples that I'm not going to cite, but you can see some recent examples of the power of a single-minded person that's fully committed to something that that God wants them to be doing. There's incredible power there that one man can't have, and it is just a thing of beauty. I've experienced it in my own ministries, my little ministry. It's like, it's just synergistic. It starts off just me. We're going to just do this. I don't care if anybody's going to do it. And then pretty soon there's people. Now there's a lot of people. And there's other people that want to do it. And it's like a thing that was, I just picked up on it, and I get to do all that stuff. So it's a whole different reality for me, as opposed to 8 years ago. Fear, pain, shame. Yeah. Nothing good.
Nothing good. Well, we were talking about before we got into a little bit more of the other details, but going and playing at the church, and then you're consistently relapsing. What's going through your mind when you're trying to get sober that time, but you can't?
I can say one positive thing.
Okay.
It wasn't pleasant, and what was going through my mind was chaos. But I got really good at starting over and about realizing the grace that I never had for anybody, because before I relapsed and I was what I would refer to as a Christian jackass, I would be able to just look at somebody and say, you know what, I did it, you should be able to do it, which was completely not correct. That was a complete lie. So what was going through my mind was, I got to get it this time. I got to get it this time. I got to get it this time. And I would do the walk of shame, and I must have, I don't know how many newcomer chips. I used to call them silver bullets. I got over and over and over, and I'd have a month, and then I'd have none. Then I'd have 2 months, and then I'd have none. I'd have 6 months, and I'd have none. And I couldn't give up, because the thought of giving up, in my case, I was beginning to realize more and more meant death. And it was a kind of death I didn't want. The kind of death where I kill myself because I'm a meathead.
Yeah. And
I do it to myself. That's not the way I want to exit this world. Nobody wants to exit this world like that.
No.
We have different ideas, to like live and die for something that matters, Yeah. Something that's bigger than ourselves. And an addict's death is not. Right. It's just not. It's just not a good, there's no scale on which it's good. So relapsing and going through that was, you can only, I mean, many of us have done that, just relapse. But I think there's another guy at our church named DJ. And me and him would just relapse over and over. And he has just a little bit more time than me. He'd wrap his truck around something, and there he is again with a silver bullet, with that look on his face. And then he'd see me. He's got a little time, and I would have none. And he's like, "What's wrong with this guy?" And I'm like, "What's wrong with him, man? This guy's a bonehead." Both of us looking at each other throughout the years, And there was more than just us two, but that's just who pops to mind now.
Yeah.
But the torture of it was really torture. And I get sick just thinking about that feeling of waking up, having to clean the evidence out of my apartment. I hated that. But I hated leaving the, like, Brillo and all that disgusting stuff all over the place. It was just gross. Just makes me sick to think about it. And then having to crawl back to church. And a real highlight, and this didn't get me sober, was I got to tell Pastor Joe I was doing music for a kids' play. I think it was Pinocchio for Christmas or something. And I came in flames. I got my first DUI like a night before.
Yeah.
So I had almost no sleep. I'm hungover like you couldn't, well, you might be able to believe it.
Yeah.
And I told Joe I got a DUI last night. And he goes, oh. And he walks away.
Yeah.
And I played, and then they took my license. I had to, that was humiliating. I forgot about that. I had to be Ubered to work, and I'd have them drop me off down the street so that they wouldn't think I'm being Ubered, because then they'd know I got a DUI probably.
Right.
Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But it was absolutely horrible. It was absolutely horrible. But that only got me about 90 days.
Yeah.
And then I went out again. Yeah.
Yeah, I think each time, like, that's what they say, because I've heard time and time again, like, you get in, you take a seat, you work the program, and it works. And it's like, sometimes it doesn't, though. Sometimes it takes more than one try. That's why they say keep coming back. Because as long as you keep coming back, eventually that window of opportunity is going to open up for you to where you can get some solid time. But it doesn't always happen on the first try. It doesn't happen on the second. Sometimes it doesn't happen on the third, and you could be doing everything right and still not getting the result that you want. And that's been my experience. I've had experiences where I've did nothing right whatsoever, and I've stayed sober for years. And I've had experiences where I did everything right, and I could not draw a sober breath, and they've been very contradictory of a lot of the things that you hear, because we're kind of sold a dream in a way, because it does work. It works. But which time does it work? You get to see in your own personal journey which time it works, and you just can't give up. That's the ticket. It's just not giving up and continuing to try.
Well, and I think there's some other internal components too. Like, you really have to have an inner surrender.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know how to externally make that happen. I can't will that into being. I tried.
Yeah.
It has to, there's some work, some spiritual work that has to come from outside. And I think God needs to do it, because there's some things I can't change, though I might want to.
Yeah.
I don't want to be as selfish as I am. How am I supposed to fix that? I want to surrender, but I definitely want to make all the decisions.
Right.
So it's just who I am or who I was. Yeah. So the thing about the steps is it's over time, it allows you to change and to be changed and to change yourself. But to instantly want it because I don't want to get high, that didn't really click for me initially. It was a slow process to get me to, but if you surrender the program and you do your steps and you work with us, you're going to stay sober 100%. 100%. If you do what they tell you to do, 100% you're going to get sober right out of the gate, I believe. But the problem is I've got so much self-will, it didn't die just because I wanted it to die. It just was still there. So I still had to deal with the fact that the stuff I wanted and the stuff that I wanted to want weren't the same. And I didn't know how to fix that. And I realized I didn't know how to fix that at the time. But I did know that surrender was, and I think that that scare, the realization that I do it again and I'm dead, 100%.
Yeah.
I believe that. I believe that in my heart of hearts, soul of souls. And when that clicked, it got easy.
Yeah.
It got easy because I'm going to work my 12 steps in 30 days and I'm going to do whatever my sponsor says and I'm going to do it exactly how he tells me to do it. I didn't have that before. I was like, yeah. Yeah, but I got some I've been doing this a long time.
Yeah.
And I had my own ideas, but when I was convinced that my life was actually on the line, it kind of freed me to be free of suggestions from myself and to be willing to take other people's suggestions. But I don't think that everybody has to do it like I did. I don't think anybody has to suffer like I did as bad. I think you have the choice all along the way to make it easier on yourself. It's just that I think that one of my favorite things to ponder is experience is the stupidest way to learn anything. The best way to learn is from other people's experience. But it takes humility to learn from other people's experience.
It takes trust too. You have to, yeah. You got to trust that they really did, because that's something that I run into a lot. I'm like, for them, yeah, like didn't work out for them, but for me, I'm not them. So
Exactly.
It definitely does require humility and trust.
Yeah, trust is a big one too. And I other people I think have been, for me, it was trusting myself. I didn't have like a lot of external like people, like abuse and stuff like that isn't really a part of my story, except from myself. And I didn't believe myself. I started to not believe myself when I said I was going to get sober, because I'd lied to myself a million times before.
100%.
So what's different this time? The thing that was different for me was the act of checking myself into the rehab.
Yeah.
And I still had an apartment, right? So I'm paying double rent, right? And to me, that bought me a little bit of trust in myself, because I'd never done that before.
Yeah.
Who's going to do that? Who's going to pay double rent?
Yeah.
So I did that, and that is what kind of catalyzed the new kind of the rebirth, you know?
Yeah. I think it was just making that decision that was uncomfortable for you. It was the humility of stepping into that place, because, I mean, just going into sober living by itself is just an act of humility.
It is.
It is an act of like surrender to the fullest extent, you know? Like, you didn't have to give up your apartment to do it, but going in and saying like, here, I lay it at your feet. Like, I can't do this by myself. This is obviously the next step in my journey, and not thinking you could beat your head against the window, thinking you can get out of it again. You know what I mean? Like, finally admitting to yourself and to other people that it's got you beat a little bit, and maybe this time we try something different.
Yeah. And my sponsor believed me too.
Yeah.
Before he was like, yeah, let's work the steps. And then he, but because I just like stroked him for so many years.
Yeah.
And when I'm with a sponsee now and they don't do anything I ask them to do.
Yeah.
I have to think of Roger and just a waste in his time over and over. But now we're like a sponsee family, like a sponsor family. There's 3 of us that are all kind of doing the same thing. And it's so awesome. I never had that before. Like an AA family, like a real family.
Yeah.
During the course of my relapsing, I got to play at his wife's deathbed. And when I had a job I didn't like. I hated it. I was a salesman at Sterling BMW in Newport. Couldn't stand that job. Hated it. And I would always be negative.
Yeah.
And Roger would tell me I'm so negative. And I'm thinking, yeah, you're always positive because you've got a killer job. You're selling medical equipment, driving around free as a bird, making buckets of money. I thought his life was perfect.
Yeah.
But he never mentioned something to me, that he had a wife at home dying of alcoholism. And the way I found out is he said, hey, buddy, and I happen to be sober. Can you come over and play for my wife? She's not feeling too good. And I went over and I played for a couple hours, and there's a shrunken up lady on her deathbed, and his son was there, who I didn't know, and didn't think to introduce myself. I'm just there to play my guitar, still all sucked up into myself, but I played, and she was dead the next day. And we were like married from that moment on, and it's like, there's these things throughout life. And I would say, to those that are new to the program and they feel like they have to go to AA because of their court card, or they have to go to NA because their program is making them. over time, nobody needs to make you go, because you have a life there and you have purpose there. At the very least, there is no alcoholic that can't help another alcoholic, or a junkie that can't help another junkie. It just, at the very least, you'll have a purpose and a way to redeem all your wasted years and your wreckage, you know? And I've experienced that, but it doesn't happen the first time. I went to many meetings I couldn't stand and wanted to get out, and it was like listening to fingernails across a chalkboard. Many, many, many meetings like that. But that's the price you pay to learn patience, to learn how to get out of yourself. And once you're at that point, once you can get out of your own way, and then God can take over, and he already has a purpose for you. All you got to do is step into it. But you got to put the crack pipe down. You got to put the needle down. And it's not going to want to go down that easy.
No, it's going to fight for its life.
It's going to fight for its life. Well put.
Yeah. Yeah. Like anything you try to kill.
It doesn't want to die.
Nothing wants to die.
Nope.
Yeah. What do you have to say to the person that's watching this that is hopeless, helpless? They can't figure it out. Maybe they're doing the cha-cha like you did. You know, they really want to be sober, but their feet keep walking them in a different direction.
Well, for those that want to stop, you know, and those who think that they've tried and think that they have tried the program and it doesn't work for them, I would say to you this: you haven't tried the program, right? You've gone to a few meetings, you've worked a few steps, but until you work steps 1 through 12 with a sponsor, you don't have a program. I would do that, right? I would keep your sobriety date and hold it as sacred, more sacred than your birthday, right? If you don't keep it sacred, you will not have it for long. Listen to people that have what you want, right? Also watch the people that have what you don't want and listen to what they say and compare that to what you're saying to yourself, right? And take note of the difference. Right? You don't have to die. You don't have to go to jail. You don't have to do any of those things if you call yourself out and get the help that you need. That's what I would say. Because when I was relapsing and jumping in and out of the program, I did not have a sobriety date, and I didn't have 12 steps, and I didn't have a sponsor that I was listening to.
Yeah. Well, it has been an absolute honor to have you on today. Thank you for coming on and sharing.